Good. Welcome back, everyone. Thank you for being here today, Friday. This is a very special kind of talk that we're going to do today, and I have with me Kirby Harrington, and he assists with all of our Medicaid applications and anyone that we're working with for our long-term care clients. So I wanted to introduce Kirby and have him say a few things about himself, and then we'll go from there. But as always, as we're talking and kind of explaining things, please feel free to post questions in the chat. And then at the end, if there are any questions, we can go back and address those. But for right now, Kirby, if you'd like to introduce yourself to everybody.
Yeah, hey, I'm Kirby Harrington. I assist in Medicaid planning as part of my Texas estate plan, and so kind of what I want to do is just let you know what is Medicaid planning, and then talk a little bit about the details, and then at the end, if there's any questions, then we can take those. But so what is Medicaid planning? It is basically, it's estate planning. It's estate planning with a focus on protecting assets and making sure that they don't have to be spent or used completely towards long-term care. And so long-term care, the definition of that is really just if you need any assistance with activities of daily living, that can be provided in the home, assisted living facilities, there's senior communities, and then of course nursing homes. And so the big fear that people have is they've heard about the cost of long-term care, and so if their loved one presents a need for long-term care, a lot of times the first question is how do we pay for this, because it can be expensive. Looking at the state of Texas, the average cost of skilled nursing facility is over $6,000 a month. And so, a lot of people have, worked hard, saved, they've got to have a house, they maybe have, a nest egg, and they're worried because they've seen in the past maybe friends or relatives or people that they know that have completely exhausted all their funds paying for nursing home care. Fortunately, there are some options and some legal ways that you can protect assets, and so we want to talk a little bit about those. And I'm going to break it down kind of into two categories. So the rules for Medicaid, differ whether you're married or not married. So for a non-married person, the rules are a little bit more strict. There's an asset limit, there's income limit. Fortunately, there's ways and tactics that we have that the state allows us to do to prevent, from having to spend everything. And so I would say in general, most individuals, if you look at, their estate, including their homestead, on average, a Medicaid plan can protect 60 to 80% of the estate. And so that's definitely a lot better option than having to exhaust everything. And so the individual plan does consist of some gifting, and generally we'll use family trusts to hold the money. And then as far as the homestead is concerned, there's a special type of deed that we use called a ladybird deed that will help protect the home.
Yeah. So I was just going to stop right there for just a second as we go, because when we talk about Medicaid planning, a lot of our clients are concerned, well, mom or dad are already in a home. Is it too late to do certain things like the ladybird deed or to transfer things since we're already there? Right.
Yeah, that's a great question. And the short answer is there's definitely things you can do whether you're in care or not in care. And so, proactive planning obviously is preferred, and doing it while you're healthy, and there's presents a lot of different options that you have, including long-term care insurance and some other things like that. But even if you're already in a care facility, there are still steps you can take right now to protect assets and make sure that you don't have to spend everything. Even if you've been in care for years and spent money already, unfortunately there's not a lot we can do to go back and get that, but going forward we can make sure that you don't spend more money than you have to.
So one of the things that we try to focus on when people come in is not necessarily whether or not they're in a home already, but whether or not they're capacitated, because that's going to be the biggest part about the planning process. Because if they have capacity, and there's different types of capacity, testamentary capacity, so being able to sign things that give stuff away, you have power of attorneys and stuff like that, and if you have those in place, that's great too. Now, some people face certain circumstances where they don't have any of that. Someone's in a home, or going into a home, or having to pay a lot of medical bills or anything relating to long-term care, and at that time, then we have to do guardianship, which is going to be more expensive than whether they were just going into a home and needed to do maybe a qualified income trust or something that would be pretty small relatively in regards to the estate plan that need to be done. So really, I kind of want to talk about now too. So you had mentioned earlier how we address spouses versus individuals, and sort of tell them a little bit about, for example, the spouses, some things we may do.
Okay, so as I was saying, the individual rules are a lot different, and let me preface this also by saying, tell you a little bit more about Medicaid and what division of Medicaid we're dealing with. And so when you hear the word Medicaid, a lot of times you have an idea in your mind of, okay, this is what I think it is. A lot of times it centers around indigent welfare, low income. That is true for community Medicaid. However, the division we're working with is nursing home Medicaid, or facility Medicaid, which strictly has to do with facilities. So, you may have experienced rules with community Medicaid. They're going to be completely different in facility Medicaid. So let's say that.
Yeah.
Then, as far as a spousal situation, there is a very important law in place called spousal impoverishment, which the purpose of spousal impoverishment is to protect the spouse at home. And so this is a situation where you have a spouse who's in care and a spouse who's in the community. And what they will allow is the spouse in the community to be able to protect a certain amount of money and a certain amount of income, and still get their spouse who's in care qualified. And the main reason is they want to, the spouse at home still has bills, still has to pay things, still has to live. So they're going to need, a certain amount of money, and, the state's going to make sure there's certain levels that they have on what they make sure that the spouse at home can keep. So as far as the money's concerned, the way their formula works is they look at your total countable assets, not including your house, and they're going to either allow you to protect half of the countable estate, or up to a maximum of around $125,000, or a minimum of around $26,000. So basically what that means is there is a protected amount that is set immediately. Okay. In a lot of situations it is half, which does leave the other half vulnerable. And so there are some strategies using different spin down techniques or Medicaid annuity that we can actually still, preserve part of the vulnerable half as well. So that's the way it works as far as the assets are concerned. The house does not count as an asset as long as it's less than $550,000 in value.
So, and I'll say right now, kind of piggybacking off of that, when's a good time to plan? Well, with Medicaid, there's 60-month look-back period, or 5 years. And so typically individuals, depending on how many assets they have, not necessarily the income at that time, but more so the assets, it will determine any strategies that we have moving forward as far as transferring, what type of asset it may be, maybe different ways to exempt certain assets, maybe property. And so the more advanced notice, so to speak, that you have regarding maybe having to go into a nursing home, the more time that you will have to make different transfer
More
strategies,
options, yeah.
or you'll have more options. And so we always try to say there are variables in life that you don't know. You don't know when you will need care in a home. You don't know when someone's health is going to fail. You don't know if there's going to be an accident. And so in order to address those and take out as many unknown variables as you can, putting in place certain things like power of attorneys, maybe a certain type of trust or a will that's more directed at long-term planning and certain ways things will be transferred. It enables you to protect yourself as much as you possibly can in accounting for preserving your estate down the road in the future where you may have to spend it down. But these are just kind of general things that a lot of our clients need to be aware of, or friends of clients need to be aware of, because this is for everybody. And really, with the way that things are now, in the last 100 years, people are living 30 years longer typically. And so with that, no longer is it live, and then typically pass away, so much as it is live, become disabled, maybe get better, maybe not, live a little bit longer and pass. And it's that interim of disability and sort of end of life decisions and quality of care that we're concerned about, just because of the life expectancy of individuals and what's involved in planning for the end and making sure you have enough and protecting what you have. And so really that's what we wanted to touch on today as far as the Medicaid process. Obviously there are a lot more considerations, but hopefully this has given you guys a good overview of maybe moms going into a home, or maybe you want to get ahead of the 5-year look-back period so you don't get caught in a position where you have to pay a penalty for having to transfer sudden assets during the 5-year look-back period. So in any event, we are here in Tyler, and we also have a satellite office in Atlanta, Texas, but we service all of Northeast Texas, and we have a team here that is dedicated to estate planning, Medicaid planning. We talk with the state every day. We have helped hundreds, if not thousands, of people get qualified for Medicaid, and we're located here in Tyler, 903-308-4974, or you can call the specific Medicaid division number.
There's 903-561-8644.
And we're all here, and we do it all in one place. So if you have any questions in the comments, Tara is here. And are there any questions right now? Okay. Just kind of hellos from everybody. Well, that's good too.
And one thing I just want to leave it with is it's never too late to look at what your options are, whether you're going into a facility, been there for years, or perfectly healthy at home. There are always options up until the point that you spend everything.
Right, and at that point, we have had clients that unfortunately have called and said, okay, well, mom or dad are in the home, we've spent everything down, we're about to be qualified for Medicaid, and that for us is one of the most difficult things to hear, because we think, well, if you would have called about 3 years ago, we could have protected hundreds of thousands at the house. There are certain, you must not do things like typically sell the house because you have an exempt asset that now you've converted to cash and it's countable now. So there are just different strategies like that to someone who is not intending on planning for long term and they don't consider these things, that it ends up costing them in the long run if they don't know these certain rules. So we're here to educate and inform and help in any way that we can. Thank you guys for tuning in today, and thanks Kirby for coming in and helping and talking. But we will be back next week with another video. We'll put out something earlier in the week talking about the topic. So if you guys have any topics that you want us to hit, just let us know. But other than that, thank you guys very much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.